Galactic Cooperative Danger Assessment Division. Field Report. Sol System, 3rd Planet. Designation, Earth. Reporting Officer, Field Assessor Vorath Sullin, 14th Danger Classification Unit. Assigned Guide, Cadet Jordan Hayes, Galactic Military Institute. Current Danger Rating, Category 4 Standard. Recommended Rating, see Conclusions. Note from the Division Director. This report is reproduced in full because Field Assessor Sullin's written language becomes increasingly difficult to summarize without losing critical context. Readers are advised that Assessor Sullin is a decorated 14-year veteran of the Danger Classification Unit who has previously assessed 31 worlds, including 3 Category 6 designations. His composure is considered exceptional within the division. We include this note so that readers understand the weight of what follows. Day 1. I arrived at the human spaceport designated Heathrow on the planet's largest landmass, a region called Europe, at 0900 local time. The atmosphere was immediately notable. Oxygen-nitrogen mix with a higher particulate content than the cooperative standard, and a gravity that I had been warned about in my briefing materials and had discounted as overstated. The gravity is not overstated. My assigned guide, Cadet Jordan Hayes, was waiting at the arrival terminal. He is a young human male, lean, dark-eyed, with the economical stillness of a military cadet. He greeted me with the human gesture of extending one hand for brief physical contact, which I had been briefed on and performed correctly. He then said, and I am transcribing this precisely because it set the tone for everything that followed, he said, "Welcome to Earth. Try not to let it kill you." I assumed this was humor. I noted it and moved on. I was wrong to assume it was humor. The transit from the spaceport to our first assessment location took approximately 2 hours by ground vehicle. During this transit, I observed the following. Humans operating ground vehicles at speeds that would constitute reckless endangerment on any cooperative world, with approximately 30 centimeters of clearance between vehicles moving in opposite directions. Humans consuming food and liquid while simultaneously operating said vehicles. One human operating a vehicle while engaged in a vocal communication device, while consuming a liquid, while the vehicle's navigation system emitted warnings that the human was ignoring entirely. I asked Cadet Hayes if this was normal. He said yes. I asked if the humans operating vehicles in this manner were aware of the danger. He said yes. I asked why they continued. He said, and again I am transcribing precisely, because they're in a hurry. I made my first notation in the assessment log. I noted that the dominant species of Earth appeared to have a relationship with risk that required further study. This was, in retrospect, the understatement of my 14-year career. Day 2, Location, Wildlife Research Station, Eastern Africa. The Danger Classification Unit's standard protocol for planetary assessment requires a survey of the local megafauna within the first 3 days. Earth's megafauna profile had been flagged in preliminary surveys as noteworthy, which in cooperative classification language means concerning, which in plain language means the beings who wrote the preliminary survey were frightened and did not want to say so directly. The Wildlife Research Station was run by a human named Dr. Adizobi. A small female with reading glasses, she pushed up her nose every 30 seconds, and the calm of someone who had spent 20 years in the company of things that could kill her and had arrived at a philosophical acceptance of this fact. She met us at the station entrance and said, "Perfect timing. I was just about to process the morning samples." She said this the way you say the coffee is ready. The way you say the weather is nice today. I asked what morning samples meant. She held up a sealed container. Inside the container, visible through the transparent side, was a snake. Not a small snake. A snake that was as long as I am tall and as thick as my primary arm, with a head the size of my fist and markings that the Cooperative's Universal Biological Threat Assessment System would have classified, had it been present and operational, as extreme danger, do not approach. Dr. Obi opened the container. I wish to note for the record that I moved approximately 4 meters backward in a single movement. I wish to note this because it is relevant to understanding my subsequent state of mind, and because field assessor dignity requires transparency. Dr. Obi reached into the container with her bare hands and removed the snake. I said, and I recognized this was not professional language, "What are you doing?" She said, still in the tone of someone discussing the weather. "Oh, don't worry, she's defanged for processing. Usually." She paused. Well, the venom sacs are reduced. Mostly. Cadet Hayes was standing beside me. He was watching Dr. Obi handle the snake with the expression of someone watching something mildly interesting on a screen. Not alarmed. Not tense. Mildly interested. I said to him, quietly, "Is this normal?" He said, "She does this every morning." I said, "The snake could kill her." He said, "Probably not this one specifically." I said, "Probably." He said, "Yeah." Dr. Obi spent the next 40 minutes handling, measuring, and tagging 17 snakes of 4 species, 2 of which she described as extremely venomous, with the same tone she used to describe the morning as slightly overcast. At one point, one of the snakes, a shorter but apparently more aggressive species she called a puff adder, struck at her glove. She said, without looking up from her notes, "Rude," and continued working. I filed my second notation. I noted that Earth's dominant species had normalized proximity to lethal fauna to a degree that the Cooperative's psychological assessment framework did not have a category for. Cadet Hayes offered me water. He said I looked pale. Humans do not understand what pale means for my species, but I understood what he meant, and I did not argue. Day 3, location, suburban residential area, North America. I had requested, as part of the standard assessment protocol, a survey of how Earth's dominant species lived in proximity to other species. The preliminary surveys had noted that humans kept animals in their homes, which was a practice common enough across cooperative species to not seem remarkable. The preliminary surveys had not adequately described the animals. Cadet Hayes brought me to a residential neighborhood in a region called Ohio. It was a pleasant area by Earth standards. Small structures with green vegetation around them, smooth transit paths, small humans visible playing in front of several structures. The small humans were playing with dogs. I had been briefed on dogs. The briefing described them as domesticated mammals, pack hunters descended from a predatory species, selectively bred by humans over thousands of years for various purposes. The briefing was accurate as far as it went. The briefing did not mention that some of the purposes for which humans had selectively bred these animals included, and I am reading directly from the research I conducted that evening because I needed to verify what I was seeing with my own eyes, fighting lions. The dogs in this neighborhood were not the small companionable animals I had seen in the spaceport the previous day. These were large, heavily muscled animals with broad heads and deep chests and the kind of physical presence that, on any other planet in the Cooperative's registry, would have been accompanied by warning barriers and trained handling teams. They were playing with children. Not supervised, controlled interaction. Playing. A child of perhaps 6 of Earth's years was sitting on the back of a dog that came up to my hip, using it as a riding animal, while the dog turned in slow circles apparently for the child's amusement. Another dog, equally large, was having a rope pulled from its mouth by 3 children simultaneously and appeared to be enjoying the experience. I asked Cadet Hayes what breed these animals were. He said, "That one's a Rottweiler. Those 2 are American Mastiffs. The one the kid's riding is a Cane Corso." He paused. "They're good with kids." I looked up the Cane Corso on my assessment tablet while the child continued to ride it. The assessment entry said, "Large Italian breed historically used for big game hunting, wild boar control, and livestock protection against wolves and bears. Bite force approximately 700 pounds per square inch." The child patted it on the head and it licked her face. I said to Cadet Hayes, "This animal was bred to hunt wild boar." He said, "And bears, yeah? She's good with the kids, though. Gentle giant." I said, "You are describing an animal bred to fight bears as a gentle giant." He said, "Well, she's never actually fought a bear. She's more of a couch dog now." I made my third notation. I noted that humanity had taken the planet's apex predators, bred them into something larger and more powerful, and then given them to children as companions. I noted that this had apparently worked. I noted that I did not understand how this had apparently worked and that further study was required. I did not pet the dog. Cadet Hayes petted the dog. The dog appeared to enjoy this enormously. Day 4, location, Wildlife Conservation Area, Sub-Saharan Africa. The honey badger was not on the official assessment schedule. I want to be clear about this. The honey badger was not something I had sought out or requested. We were in transit between 2 scheduled assessment locations when our ground vehicle stopped because an animal was blocking the path. The animal was approximately the size of a small piece of luggage. black and white coloring, low to the ground. It was sitting in the middle of the transit path eating something that I could not identify and did not wish to identify, and was paying absolutely no attention to the 2-ton ground vehicle that had stopped for it. Our driver, a local human named Kofi, said, "Honey badger, we wait." I asked how long we would wait. Kofi said, "Until it's done." I looked at the animal. I looked at Kofi. I asked why a 2-ton vehicle was waiting for an animal the size of luggage. Kofi looked at me with the patient expression of someone explaining something to a being who did not yet understand the nature of their situation. He said, "You don't mess with honey badgers." I accessed my assessment tablet. The entry on honey badgers was longer than the entry on several of the planet's large predators. It used phrases like documented cases of driving off lions. Loose skin allows rotation within its own hide to bite attackers, has been observed to survive multiple cobra bites in a single encounter, and my personal favorite, has no known natural predators due to temperament. Has no known natural predators due to temperament. I looked at the animal eating its unidentified meal in the middle of the road. It looked up at the vehicle once, with the expression of something that had assessed the vehicle and found it not worth concerning itself with, and then looked back down at its food. Cadet Hayes, sitting beside me, said, "Tough little guys." I said, "The entry says they have survived multiple cobra bites." He said, "Yeah, they kind of just get groggy and sleep it off, and then wake up and keep going." I said, "They sleep off cobra venom." He said, "Pretty much." I said nothing further. I watched the honey badger finish its meal, stand up, scratch itself with the energy of something that had never experienced a moment of fear in its entire evolutionary history, and walk off the path into the vegetation. Kofi drove forward. I made my fourth notation. My fourth notation was longer than my previous 3 combined. It contained the phrase "this planet is not what the preliminary survey suggested," and the phrase "I am beginning to understand why the preliminary survey team requested psychological support upon return," and the phrase "I need to reassess my baseline assumptions about what Category 4 means." Day 6. Location, Pacific Ocean, coordinates on file. I need to preface this entry by stating that I have assessed 3 Category 6 worlds. I have stood on the surface of Veth 9, which is predators that hunt by sensing the bioelectric field of their prey and can detect a being from 4 kilometers. I have surveyed the ocean floor installations on Kareth Prime, where the local megafauna routinely breach research vessels for reasons that xenobiologists have not yet determined. I have done these things, and I have written about them in the flat professional language that the Danger Classification Unit requires, and I have maintained my composure. I am going to attempt to maintain my composure for this entry. I am going to attempt it. We were on a research vessel in the Pacific Ocean, which is the largest body of water on Earth's surface, covering approximately 1/3 of the planet's total area and containing, as I was to learn, essentially everything that had ever decided that evolution was a competition and they intended to win it. The research team we were accompanying was studying large predatory fish, specifically a species called the great white shark. The great white shark is the largest predatory fish on Earth. It can reach 6 meters in length. It has been evolving for approximately 400 million years, which means it was a perfected killing machine before Earth had trees. Its sensory systems can detect a single drop of blood in an Olympic-sized swimming pool. I was watching them from the deck of the vessel, through the transparent viewing panel on the side, in the manner that every sane being in the Cooperative would watch a 6-meter predator that had been perfecting itself for 400 million years.
Cadet Hayes was watching them from beside me. Then he said, "You want to get in?" I turned to look at him. He was already taking off his outer clothing. I said, "You are not getting in the water." He said, "We've been doing this since the 90s. It's called free diving with sharks. You just have to know how to move around them." I said, "Those animals are 6 meters long and have been evolving for 400 million years. He said, "Yeah, they're incredible, right?" He said this with genuine enthusiasm, the enthusiasm of someone describing something they found wonderful. The key is you don't thrash around. You just move slowly and stay calm, and they basically leave you alone. I said, "Basically." He said, "Mostly." I said, "I am noticing a pattern in your use of qualifiers." He grinned. It was the first time I had seen him grin. It was not a reassuring expression on a human about to get into water with a 6-meter predator. It was the expression of someone doing something they genuinely loved. He got in the water. I am going to describe what happened next as clinically as I am able. Cadet Hayes entered the water from the vessel's dive platform and descended to approximately 4 meters depth. There were 3 great white sharks in the immediate vicinity. The largest was an estimated 5.5 meters. I know this because I was pressed against the transparent viewing panel with my assessment tablet recording everything, and I measured it on the footage afterward because I needed the number to exist somewhere official. The sharks did not attack him. They approached. 2 of them came within touching distance. The largest one passed directly beneath him, close enough that Hayes could have reached down and put his hand on it, which, and I am including this in the official record, he did. He put his hand on a 5.5-meter great white shark that had been evolving for 400 million years, and it continued swimming, and he watched it go, and his face, visible through his mask, had the expression of someone watching something beautiful. He was in the water for 22 minutes. He came back up onto the dive platform and dried himself off and said, "You really should try it. It's one of the best things on Earth." I looked at him for a long time. I said, "You touched it." He said, "She seemed okay with it." I said, "She?" He said, "You can tell by the size. The females are bigger." I went back to my cabin and sat on my bunk for 45 minutes and stared at the wall and did not write anything in my assessment log because I did not have the professional language for what I had just witnessed. When I came back out, Cadet Hayes was on the deck talking to one of the research team about which dive sites on Earth had the best shark populations and which seasons were optimal for visibility, and I stood in the doorway and listened to 2 humans discuss swimming with apex ocean predators the way other beings discuss choosing a restaurant. And I understood something that I had been resisting understanding for 6 days. These beings were not brave. Bravery implied an awareness of danger being overcome. What I was watching was something different, something that did not have a clean name in my language, a relationship with danger that was not the absence of fear and was not the management of fear, but was something older than either of those things. Something that had been built into this species by a planet that had spent 4 billion years trying to kill everything on it and had failed, and the thing that had survived the failing was this. These people, who touched apex predators and called it beautiful and asked if you wanted to try. I went back to my cabin and wrote for 3 hours. The notation I filed that evening was not a notation, it was a complete reassessment. Final report, submitted to the Danger Classification Unit, Field Assessor Vorath Sullin. I am recommending that Earth be reclassified from Category 4 Standard to Category 7 Omega. For context, no world has ever received a Category 7 Omega designation. The category exists in the classification framework as a theoretical maximum, the designation for a world so comprehensively dangerous that cooperative personnel should under no circumstances visit without the highest level of preparation and authorization. It was created as a boundary condition, a number at the end of the scale that nothing was expected to reach. I am recommending it for Earth. Not primarily because of the fauna. The fauna is extraordinary. A species that sleeps off cobra venom, animals bred to fight lions that are now used as children's companions, ocean predators that have been evolving for 400 million years that the local population swims with for recreation. Any one of these observations would warrant a category upgrade on most worlds I have assessed. I am recommending Category 7 Omega because of the humans. The fauna is dangerous. The humans are something the classification system was not designed to describe. They are a species that evolved on the most hostile planet in this sector of the galaxy, in the company of things that were bigger and faster and stronger than them at every stage of their development, and they survived not by avoiding those things, but by learning them, by touching them, by deciding that the appropriate response to a planet full of things that could kill you was to understand those things completely, and then, in many cases, to keep them as pets.
Cadet Jordan Hayes, my assigned guide. is 22 years old. He is a military cadet at an interstellar academy. He is, by every metric I used during this assessment, an entirely ordinary human. Not exceptional, not unusual. When I asked him on the last day whether he was aware that most species in the Cooperative would find his behavior during this assessment alarming, he thought about it for a moment and said, "I guess Earth makes you comfortable with things being dangerous." Comfortable with things being dangerous. I have been trying to find a more precise way to say what I observed during this assessment. I have 14 years of professional language, and I cannot improve on what a 22-year-old human said in 8 words. They are comfortable with things being dangerous. They have always been comfortable with things being dangerous. The planet made them that way, and they have been that way so long that they do not notice it anymore. It is not courage. It is not recklessness. It is a baseline orientation toward a universe full of things that can kill you that the Cooperative's classification system was designed by beings who do not share and did not anticipate. We have been classifying Earth as Category 4 Standard for 11 years. Category 4 Standard means a world with notable environmental hazards and fauna requiring standard precautions. It means a world where cooperative personnel should be careful. Category 4 Standard is what we give to worlds where the danger is in the environment. Earth's danger is not in the environment. Earth's danger is that the environment produced something that became comfortable with it. I am recommending Category 7 Omega. I am also recommending, in a separate addendum that I have filed with the division director personally, that the Cooperative's current strategic posture toward humanity be reviewed at the highest level. Not because humans are hostile. In 11 days on Earth, Cadet Hayes and every human I met were generous, curious, and genuinely welcoming. That is almost the most alarming thing I can report. A species that is comfortable with danger and genuinely welcoming is not a threat you can see coming. It is not a threat that announces itself. It is a species that invites you to swim with the sharks and means it kindly, and is not wrong that you would probably be fine, and is also, in ways that will take the Cooperative Strategic Division years to fully understand, the most significant development in this galaxy since faster-than-light travel. I am filing this report, and I am taking 2 weeks of mandatory leave as recommended by the Division's psychological support team. I am also, and I include this because the record should be complete, I am keeping in contact with Cadet Hayes. He has offered to show me something called a honey badger sanctuary on my next visit and has assured me that the animals are, and I am quoting directly, usually fine with people as long as you respect their space. I told him I would think about it. I will not be going to the honey badger sanctuary. I will probably go to the honey badger sanctuary. This species is going to be the end of me. Field Assessor Vorath Sullin. 14th Danger Classification Unit. Galactic Cooperative. Recommended Planetary Classification, Category 7 Omega. Current Assessor Status. On leave, Psychological Support recommended. Next scheduled Earth visit, pending.